Sicily is an island ruled by a bastard form of capitalist competition, where the lines between economics, politics and crime have been erased.
With these words, Franchetti described Sicily in the 19th century. And for good reason. The sunny island, which today attracts thousands of tourists with its views, has a very difficult and bloody history. And it began in the 1860s. That's when Sicilians, and later the whole world, encountered the people of honor, better known as Cosa Nostra.
Sicily became a slave who suffered from fear and was constantly silent. Dead silence stood even in the face of crimes that made you scream.
The Cosa Nostra of the 19th century had many names. A sect, a brotherhood, bandits, or a gathering of thieves, swindlers and experienced people who were engaged in racketeering on citrus fruits.
Sicilian lemon and orange plantations were the most profitable agricultural business throughout Europe, with steadily increasing exports.
In the early 1800s, 400,000 boxes a year were delivered to New York and London. In the mid-1800s, there were already 750,000, and at the end there were 2.5 million. The continuous flows of money turned ordinary thugs into a secret organization that ordinary citizens called mafiosi. And the gang members themselves passed themselves by as people of honor. Over time, the usual racketeering and blackmail spread to all areas of Sicilian activity. The mafia took control of even illegal money flows. Those who once stole and resold now paid tax. Fraudsters also became taxpayers. The word, Cosa Nostra, gained such weight that the Sicilians themselves knew that if you refuse a person of honor, you should order a house for yourself.
If you bought a horse, you had to report it to the mafia. They had to check his teeth, condition and make sure that the purchase was justified. They controlled absolutely everything.
The name, Cosa Nostra, was fixed at the end of the 19th century, when the mafia became closely intertwined with the political life of Sicily and Italy in particular. Though the mafiosis' presence was evident, their existence was doubted by all. Life in the shadows was saved thanks to the murder of witnesses, the bribery of politicians, judges and connections throughout the country. Thanks to this, almost all crimes were carried out by the mafia. The police acted as statistical observers. It was almost impossible to find the culprits, because law enforcement officers believed that the people of honor were all Sicilians. This is where the proverb came from.
Tutti colpevoli, nessun colpevoli. If everyone is to blame, then no one is to blame.
It was very difficult to join the mafia. It's not you who chooses Cosa Nostra, but Cosa Nostra who chooses you. The informal part of the initiation is similar to an interview, but the traditional officialdom is completely different. The candidate washes the holy image with his own blood, and while the image is burning, the newly minted mafioso gives the gag to unquestioningly follow the orders of the head of the clan. The word, why, does not exist. If there is an order, there must be action. The finale of such a dedication was murder, and who to kill was decided by the boss.
The burning image symbolized humility. And if you betray Cosa Nostra, you will burn like ashes from resentment.
A key to the people of honor's secrecy was their complex hierarchy, divided by territories and districts. The lowest were the soldiers, these are groups of 10 people. They were commanded by capodecina.
Capodecina is a tithe, a person appointed by the head of the family. His area of responsibility includes detachments of soldiers of 10 people.
Above the 10th is the boss or family. Each boss has one deputy and several advisors. Such a structure operates on the same territory. The 3 territories together form the mandamento, the district. And the heads of these districts are included in the commission, something like a mafia parliament. Usually, this commission also has a capo di tutti capi. This is the most authoritative boss of all the families that are part of the commission. In non-FIA circles, this person is considered to be the boss of all bosses.
The heads of families controlled everything that happened in the economy, politics, society and even in religion.
20th century was full of ups and downs for Cosa Nostra. It was during this period that the mafia showed its true face, the one we know today. The life of the Sicilian mafiosi revolved not only around constant machinations and racketeering. Have you ever wondered how the mafia everyday life goes? It's like in the movies. Expensive clothes, luxury cars and large houses. Behavior had to be appropriate. From entertainment, lavish banquets and hunting, holidays with your wife and visits to other mafia families. By the way, about women, in Cosa Nostra they were treated with respect. After all, your wife is your face. If he cheats on the mafioso, he automatically signs a death sentence for himself. But murder for people of honor is a whole art. An industry of violence in which mafia enemies were walled up in concrete, brutally strangled, shot, blown up and dissolved in acid.
Their code says not to kill women and children. They didn't pay attention to it. Both women and children were killed. At the same time, they always found reasons to justify bloody murders.
Mafia racketeering lasted until the mid-20s. Sicily became an area where the crime rate was 10 times higher than any other region. But the arbitrariness was cut short by the fascist Benito Mussolini. When he reached Sicily, he challenged all the mafiosi. Historians identify two reasons for the confrontation between Mussolini and Cosa Nostra. The first is that the people of honor behaved too defiantly and condescendingly. They considered themselves masters not only in Sicily, but throughout the territory of Italy at that time. And the second is that the liquidation of the mafia was a political step thanks to which Mussolini could gain authority.
When Mussolini arrived in Sicily to give a speech, cripples and beggars stood before him. It was quite obvious that the head of the mafia ordered not to come to this speech. And Mussolini wanted to be the only one who was feared and obeyed.
Be that as it may, the war against Cosa Nostra has begun. From 1924 to 1929, Lieutenant Cesare Mori, better known as Iron Perfect, together with the police and the army, exterminated entire clans by the hundreds.
Cesare Mori, nicknamed Iron Perfect, received for his tough campaign against Cosa Nostra. In the period from 1924 to 1929, he put about 11,000 people behind bars, including innocents.
The Duce gave him complete freedom of action, so mafiosi often became victims of their own methods of torture. However, most of them still went to jail.
Cesare Mori surrounded entire districts. He had a list of suspects, and he mercilessly took away even entire families if they were in any way connected with the mafia.
In fact, Mussolini and Mori eradicated Cosa Nostra. The Sicilians have forgotten who the people of honor are. However, only until 1943. The British, American and Canadian military invaded Sicily and freed hundreds of mafiosi. They mistook them for political prisoners. No one could even imagine that by opening the cage doors, the most cruel crime bosses in Italy would be released.
None of them had ever heard of Cosa Nostra. They produced mafia heads who introduced themselves as mayors of cities or the top of local governments.
One of the most authoritative bosses of Cosa Nostra, Vizzini Calogero, probably the most unique in the history of the Sicilian Mafia, was released. The principle of his supremacy was not in violence, which was characteristic of most gang members, but in order and peace between all. Calogero joined the political party Christian Democrats. It is clear that his help was not useless. In 1954, Vizzini Calogero died. After his death, the world of Cosa Nostra changed completely. Young mafiosi began to come to power, more cruel, resourceful and cunning. Like, for example, Luciano Leggio. He began his criminal career as a killer of the Corwanzi family. His cruelty knew no bounds. He spied with lead on everyone who crossed the path of this family. But the desire to become the main one pushed him to kill the head of the clan, Michel Navarre. In 1958, Leggio along with a group of killers shot the car in which the boss was traveling, and Luciano himself took his place.
The mafia has become new. It invented completely different approaches to business. It became like American gangsters.
In the 1960s, the mafia began to deal with drugs internationally. Opium grown in Afghanistan was exported to the United States through Turkey. Such a dirty business brought not only crazy profits but also became an apple of discord Cosa Nostra. Every day before the eyes of the Sicilians, the corpses of mafiosi who entered the battle for control of drug trafficking were carried out of the streets. To stop violence on the streets of already troubled Sicily, thousands of police officers conducted raids. By the early 1970s, about 1,900 people of honor had been arrested, including 114 leaders. In the criminal world of Cosa Nostra, a person has appeared because of whose ambitions the secret organization collapsed. Salvatore Rina, nicknamed Shorty. In 1974, Rina wanted the entire Sicilian Mafia to submit to one clan, the Corleone. To do this, he used the usual methods. He killed everyone who refused him. In 1981, on the orders of the Shorty, Mafia mercenaries demolished the head of the boss of one of the districts of Palermo, Stefano Bantate, from a Kalashnikov assault rifle. Thus began the second and largest war in the history of Cosa Nostra. Every day, 5 corpses were found on the streets, dismembered, burned, with crushed heads and broken bones. The victims were not only mafiosi, but also judges, prosecutors, police, and even innocent citizens.
In Palermo, they killed absolutely all the authorities: the mayor, the governor, the head of the opposition. Chief prosecutors were killed twice. Absolutely everyone.
The massacre lasted 3 years, until 1983. The impetus for the end of this arbitrariness was given by Tommaso Buscetta, a Sicilian mafioso who violated omerta.
Omerta is the mafia's code of honor. One of the points is a ban on cooperation with law enforcement agencies.
He betrayed members of Cosa Nostra because a mafia war had taken his family away from him. It was his glow that gave the Italian judges Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino the opportunity to show the people of honor to the whole world and start the Maxi process.
The Maxi process was a trial in February 1986 of Cosa Nostra members, during which about 350 members of the mafia were sent to jail. The totality of sentences reached the figure of 2,500 years.
Falcone and Borsellino were able to almost completely change the system. They dealt a merciless blow to the mafia. They did what the government and people were afraid of. They went against Cosa Nostra. Obviously, the mafiosi could not forgive this, and already in 1992 in the city of Capaci, Falcone's car was blown up. And 2 months later they dealt with his partner Paolo Borsellino.
After his death, Falcone actually became a national hero. Hundreds of young people wanted to become judges because of the image he set for this profession.
Falcone's death opened the eyes of the Sicilians. People who had been silent for years came out in thousands to protest against the mafia. In the same year, Italian Prime Minister Giuliano Amato sent 7,000 troops to Sicily. In cooperation with the police, they drove members of Cosa Nostra out of Sicily until 1998. During the raids, it was possible to catch Salvatore Rina, who was sentenced to life. He died in 2017 at the age of 87. Since then, Sicilians have been breathing freely. The mafia no longer controls them. But this does not mean that people of honor no longer exist. They just shoot less, sit quieter, and do things much more secretly.